are here. I don't often get emotional. But I've seen this film now 3 times, and every time I watch those educators who have gone through some traumatic events, it always kind of touched me. But sitting here in this space with the people who have been here supporting me over the past 4 years, it was very emotional for me because I know exactly what they went through, and I know that words can never really truly emulate that to people. And so I'm just really grateful that you gave those people a voice. Because they may or may not have had people around them to support them through that. So thank you so much for that opportunity. All right. So my first question, I'm going to start with Jennifer and or Tom, whoever wants to answer. But I think it's a great question. I've heard this answer before, and I think it's really wonderful. But what inspired you guys to make this documentary? And truly, when you started out, what did you hope that the audience would take away from it all?
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. We've been in the entertainment industry our whole lives. So we're filmmakers. Tom was an actor for 45 years and writer. And we live in Charleston, South Carolina, and we got up and had coffee one morning and read the front page of the paper, and it was a picture of these 3 students, and it said, "Students fight back against book bans." And we had no idea it was happening. We're like, book bans? Who's banning books? So we read the article, we were astonished, and we reached out to them right away and said, this is a film that needs to be, this is a story that needs to be told. And we met these 3 kids and watched them grow up. From being seniors in high school, they became voting age during this film. They voted for the first time, they went off to college. They trained a lot of people under them to take over their roles in school and show at board meetings and how to do that. They're amazing students. Where we expected this to go, I'll let you talk. You're a director.
Well, we were on the drive down here. Jen reminded. She was like, "When did we start doing this?" And we realized that we read that newspaper headline March 13th of 20, sorry, I'm old. I'm still in the 20th century, but 2023. And we wound up sending a film crew down to Beaufort April 4th, 2023.
Wow.
So that says a couple of things. One, that we're batshit crazy, okay, to try and do something like that, to set up a feature film. But it was that important to us, and it just stood out to us intuitively that we needed to do something about this. And then things just happened. Did we think? I don't know. I don't think you ever think it can be this, but your compass is pointed toward this. But a lot of things had to happen. A lot of people had to say yes. All these people here had to say yes. I get emotional because it takes as filmmakers, we want to get the juiciest stuff. And sometimes we forget about the courage it takes for regular people to step up and do what these 3 did, right? And what the kids did, right? And yet we had all these people say yes. So as this came,
We had a lot of people say no.
yeah, we did that. Yeah, right. And that was fine because these are the people we want to hear from. But this has really exceeded our wildest dreams. We're very grateful. We're very gratified that it turned out the way it did, and a lot of things had to happen that were a little beyond our control. But this story took on a life of its own, and it broke. It was continuing to break. I mean, everything was happening in Florida. It was breaking as we were doing this. And so we didn't really know. We were just following where the story went. And so we're just very grateful and gratified that it wound up being, we could tell a cohesive story and give not only bring the issue to America that may not be aware, as we weren't, of the severity of what's going on, but the human side of the story. That's what I'm proudest of, is that you get an emotional experience because you're watching human beings dealing with this stuff. And so we're just very gratified that this is the way it worked out, and it took a lot of work and a lot of courage from a lot of people to make it happen. So, yeah.
All right, so Paul, my question is for you, my next one. What was the moment that you realized that you needed to get involved in some way and become an activist? And what kind of pushback do you feel like you faced was the most tremendous, and how did you keep yourself motivated through all that?
Okay, so that's sort of a two-part answer. As far as there was getting involved, and then there was becoming an activist, and those feel like two different stages for me. The first thing was when you said you saw the headline. It was like, wait, book banning. So my wife, Amy, who many of you know, saw I think in the paper or whatever that all of a sudden, after decades of effectively no book challenges in Brevard County, all of a sudden there was 40, all by one person. Most of you can name her, and that the board, which you were on at the time, was forming a review committee to look at these challenges with parent members nominated by each board member. And Amy said, well, at first took a minute to convince me that in this century that the book banning was actually happening. Said, well, you should go do that. You're smart. You're loud. You argue well. You like to read. Something like that. And so I just emailed Jennifer or Facebook message or whatever on your official page, basically saying, hey, you remember I met you and your husband when you were canvassing, when you were door knocking. I was in my driveway and then ran into you at Publix later that day, and I was that guy. And I'm a parent and I'm a satellite grad and I love to read, and I'm, this is insane, and I just feel like somebody should, hey, you want a parent voice? I'm a parent. I'm happy to be there and be an advocate. I will actually read the books. I'll take it seriously. And then I assumed that somebody more qualified would come along. And it turned out now I was sufficiently qualified. At this point, the fact that I, read the books and understand what a book is and how they work turns out to have set me apart from some people and 3/5 of the school board at this point. So that gets into the second part. So realizing that this was happening at all, realizing that book banning was a thing happening in this universe. Step one, okay, that's bad. I can yell at the TV about it, or I can go yell at people who might be able to do something. But then really seeing how ingrained it was, and hearing hearing all the same arguments you heard in this movie, because it's like a regional theater. It's like we're part of the Brevard County production of Censorious Assholes. This was the Buford production of it. It's the same characters, different actors. And you've heard all this. Unfortunately, now some of those you just hear right from the dais at the school board meeting. When they talk about having experts on the committee being a conflict of interest, our current board chair also thinks that, because he's great. So seeing how bad that was, okay, again, gotta fight this, gotta talk about this, gotta make more noise. And then quickly meeting some amazing people who were already involved and learning more. And it was just once I saw what was going on, I couldn't go back to being quiet. I just couldn't. Because, there's kids that are being deprived of books, and we all know the arguments about, well, you just go to Amazon, just whatever, it exists somewhere in the universe, it's not a band. Yeah, shut up. But what's been hard about that is, there's the, somewhat a feeling of helplessness in this state, with this governor, with this current school board, where, a lot of things just fail. At this point, the book review committee, if you don't know, to the degree that exists, is just advisory, and the board will just do here whatever they feel like, including overruling a unanimous vote by a committee that doesn't agree on much, that, hey, this book is good, the Nowhere Girls, and the board said, no. So it's frustrating. It does feel like tilting against windmills. That's hard. The harassment, the criticism, the whatever. I don't care. I have not gotten I have not gotten the worst of this by far. I'm a straight white middle-aged guy in Brevard County. I'm fine. Compared to what Jennifer's had to deal with, compared to what these kids had to deal with. That's been really hard. What keeps me going through that is, I'll hear from a teacher. Thank you for speaking up where we don't feel safe to. I'll hear from a kid. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you. Thank you that there's an adult, representing that there are adults out there that give a shit about us. Mm-hmm. That helps. Again, the friendship, the working together with people with the same interest. There's a thing I read a couple weeks ago that's really stuck with me. A choir can hold a note indefinitely because every member can pause to take a breath when they need to. And the fact that we can backstop each other and keep things going, which has been pretty tough the last few months across the board, that's helped.
I'm not good at brevity.
You have a 3-minute time limit. Just kidding. Stefana. Yes. Okay, Stefana, obviously Moms for Liberty and other right-wing extremist groups often frame these book bans as an act of parental rights. How do you advise, and how have you shifted the conversation to focus on students' rights and intellectual freedom and avoid getting trapped in that rhetoric of parental rights?
Okay, so first I want to acknowledge I am actually one of 3 parents, and there's 2 other lovely parents in the back of the room, Nancy and Annie, and we are actually saying, hey, the laws that have been written, in particular the right to appeal to the state, the special magistrate process, that's not available to all parents. And so the whole narrative that this law is for parents is just wrong. It's not. It has left a lot of parent voices out of this. Your committees have come up and said these books are fine, and elected members have ignored that. And those people serving on those committees are parents. And so we call that out all the time. For those that might not be familiar with me, I am one of the few leaders of Florida Freedom to Read Project. We are parent-led. We are volunteers. We are all public school parents, and we didn't have a giant political machine behind us when we formed. We were in a committee room one day when someone came into a room, read a book aloud, and got it immediately removed. I'm from Orange County. It's happened across the state, and when we were starting in Orange County, we started noticing it happening in Brevard and in Polk and in Pinellas, and quickly said, you know what, we're learning a lot through the public records process. We're hopefully we can help across the state. And so we took on the whole state, which was insane. And so we use the actual records from around the state. We use and connect with teachers and media specialists and parents and students, and we hear what is actually going on, and we amplify as much as we can. We talk about the fact that, a book is a complete work, not just an excerpt. Mm-hmm. And so I want to bring up right now, Florida, this is not over. Last year there was a lot of we've turned the page, we're limiting book banners to 1 per month. 1692, right? Yeah, 1692, SB 1692 is moving through the Senate. And what it will do is, 1, give the Florida DOE the opportunity to create that rating system. So the Moms for Liberty rating system will likely be adopted by the state. And if any district is out of compliance with that rating system, the state will have the right to withhold funding.
Jesus Christ.
That will greatly do what they have not been able to do, which is redefine what is age appropriate. Because when committees get together, read a book in its entirety, they say, wait, this is age appropriate. It is important for our students to read for these reasons. The other thing that it's going to do, they've tried for 5 years, they have not been able to actually redefine the criminal definition of harmful to minors. What they're doing now is they're moving a new definition of harmful to minors into the education code. And what that definition will do is not allow for us to talk about the value of the work, not the literary, scientific, political, or artistic value of a book. So it is really giving the power over to the government, not parents, not committees, not educators, to the government to say what is right when and how and what ideas can be shared in our schools. And when they chip away at this, just like they did with Roe, when they can chip away, they're going to keep going. Yeah. And so these fights that we're seeing, just because South Carolina, that law passed, it was in there. Just last week, they banned 10 more books statewide. In Utah, they have, if a book is removed from 5 school districts, it gets removed from the entire state. And a student cannot bring a personal copy of that book into school.
But it's not banned. It's not banned though.
And Paul started with that, right? So when they say that we're not banning books because you can still buy it, if a student goes into a school and has a note and says, I have parental permission to access the Bluest Eye, and I did not get a seat in the AP class, but I'm going to take that AP literature test, and my teacher agrees that I am ready to take that AP test, and I would really like to read this book. So I have parent permission, I have teacher and educator support, and there is nothing wrong with that book. That book is protected speech. Can I get access to that book? And they tell you, no, that book is banned in that location to that student. So that is how we talk about this. That is how we address it. I'm sorry I went long too.
You were still shorter than Paul.
So I'm just going to ask a generic question at anyone who wants to answer it. Obviously, I started off by saying, this is a call to activism, right? Like this wasn't to depress us. I mean, we've been living this here, right? And so what can we do to keep this momentum going? Unfortunately, there's horrific things happening continuously every single day in our nation. Most recently, obviously, with the Department of Education, we're not going to see this going away. It's going to be day after day after day. We're going to get slapped with this stuff in our face. But one of the positives is I do feel like there has been this rise and this momentum of people going, what the hell is going on? And ready to step up and to fight back. And so we can't lose that momentum. So what are your suggestions for us to continue that momentum? And what kind of steps do you think we could take as somebody who may not yet be involved? Anyone?
So what I tell people is, there's a lot of, write a letter to the editor, write commentary, show up to the school board meeting. What you can really do is just have day-to-day conversations about this with your neighbors, with your friends, with the family members that voted differently. You can schedule school board meeting, schedule time with the school board members. They harassed the school board members before. You can show up and you can say, I want time on your calendar. I am concerned about this issue, and keep on going until you get on their schedule. They might not listen to you, but it's a lot harder for them to sit down and look at their watch when you're right there either in their office or on a virtual call. They usually have to at least sit there and do the face-to-face time, monopolize their time. We cannot let them take this power away from us to choose what and read freely. So I know there's a lot of issues out there, and I personally, that's my only coping mechanism, is throwing it all into one and then being in coalition with people working on a lot of different things, and that's how I'm getting by. But having those day-to-day conversations, making it not feel isolating, that is really, truly important to keep it going.
So I have 2 things. One, which is strictly sort of positive, constructive, and the other is maybe slightly more aggressive. The one is really echoing what you said, keep talking about it. Keep talking about what's actually happening in specific terms. You're going to sound a little bit crazy, because it sounds a little bit crazy. These people from another county came in and read some words, and now our kids don't have a book, and they said they did that for parental rights. That's just literally true. It sounds insane because it is, but it's what's happening. But those of us in this room here, the fact that you're here, we're involved, we're interested, we're already, this is on your radar. You will continue to be stunned the degree to which it's not on everybody's radar. Well, obviously, look what's happening with Moms for Liberty, and they're just, we don't co-parent with the government. We want the government to do all our parenting and just make the schools a safe space, so I don't ever have to have an awkward conversation with my kid about how granddad was a racist or whatever. But it's not obvious to everyone. People don't know, and when they're making all the noise, getting all the headlines, they're saying it's parental rights, and nobody's going, not mine. People don't know, just literally don't know. Why would you? They've got their own lives to deal with. They've got maybe their own form of oppression that they're fighting as well, because there's a lot of battles going on right now. So keep talking about it. Don't assume everybody knows. Don't feel, like somebody said, every day somebody's born that hasn't seen the Flintstones. People don't know not everybody, obviousness isn't universal. Everything's obvious after you know it. But the other thing is, like you said, getting in the faces, going to the school board meetings, here, whatever. I'll do it for content or something. They're not listening. But, there'll be an election coming up, and if, Gene can remember to fill out a form, I think he's going to be up for re-election next year, and maybe let's have that not happen. And Megan.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they already let GeneTrent.com lapse, the website. Somebody bought it, waste not, want not. But it's been a secret long enough. But we were up with some Penn America and some other folks up for lobby days in Tallahassee a couple weeks ago, and a thing that was pointed out to us with some of the bills that come before, like, their committees and even for the votes, they hear from who they hear from, and there have been things we learned from a former legislative aide that they would vote against, vote on some bill and not realize that there was widespread disapproval of that bill because nobody complained, nobody talked to me, nobody came. Emails mostly get ignored. If you can be there in person, you can just walk into the offices, we found out. I mean, but you can be there, you can speak, you can sign up, speak at the meetings, let them know that people are against this as well. And when I said this is not totally constructive, it's hopefully maybe you're appealing to their better natures and they want to represent their constituents, maybe. Or they do need to get reelected at some point. They are, they are in a political office that they could lose. So knowing that the whole state isn't rallying behind whatever ridiculous thing they're being asked to vote on, may at least give them cause to pause and think about it for a moment. Like, let them know, keep letting people know that it's not just Moms for Liberty in this state and in this county. And also, letting other people know that they're not alone. But really, keep that narrative going. Let people know about it. Don't assume everybody knows.
Very quick. A couple of things for this film. One, when we speak to somebody, if it's Ellen Weaver or a school board member or anybody who says, we have to get rid of DEI, don't let them use the acronym. Make them say it. Make them say, I don't want diversity, I don't want equity, I don't want inclusion, because it's a lot harder for them to say. That's number one. Number two, what we're doing, obviously, is releasing the film. So tell people to watch it. This film, to go back to your very first question, one of the reasons we made it, and we didn't know at the time that we figured this out, was for the conversation. We want people talking about the issues. And watching the film, you get to talk to people about what's in it. It comes out widely April 10th on Apple and Amazon, so you'll be able to send people there. And then shortly after that, it'll be in Canopy, so it'll be in public libraries around the world. So that's what we do.
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate the DEI statement. I happen to be a Christian, and if people come at you with DEI who are Christians, just tell them, who was the original Christian? Jesus Christ. Look at the Samaritans. He said, go talk to that Samaritan over there. They weren't supposed to be a part of your life if you were in the nation of Israel. So that whole idea is bunk. But the other thing to do along those lines, in Charleston, most of my friends are conservative. They just are. And when they've seen this movie, they've gone, yeah, book banning's not good. There's nothing good about book banning. So find those people who aren't extremists that are in your lives, and I'm sure you have them here in Florida, the libertarians, the independents who are probably more right than left, and invite and rent the movie on April 10th and say, come over to my house, have dinner, we're gonna watch this movie. Tell me what you think. Because when I watch this movie with you guys, I have to say, part of me has a regret that we didn't go harder at these people who are doing this. But we didn't do that intentionally. We treated Jennifer Pippin with respect because we were hoping that she would go to her people and say, you know what, that wasn't them. They're not really bad people. You know, they treated me with respect. But now I wish we'd thrown her ass under the bus. But I mean,
Yep.
but
We still have the rest of her interview.
we did
Oh,
it, and
shit.
it's batshit crazy, right? It was nuts. So we could do outtakes and do a whole thing on that. But we were purposely we started out trying to be fairly even-handed about this, but then you realize you can't be even-handed about this. There's right, there's wrong. And there's no gray here, you know? And so we gave that up, but I still wish we'd gone harder a little bit. But because we didn't, more people can see it and go, okay, this is not a direct attack on me, but what I'm seeing here is bad. This isn't good that people get harassed. This isn't good that educators are getting doxxed. None of this is good. And most people can agree on that. You know, it's just they're hearing all the noise from one side and not actually seeing the reality. And so what we try to do is bring the reality of what's happening there. And so if you can share it with those people who make up the majority of the American electorate, then we can get people on the school boards who are more responsive. We can get legislators who are more responsive, and it goes on up the chain. So I urge you all to do that.
I'm gonna need to buy the rights to that extra film you got there.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think we need a collaboration of Educated We Stand taking on Jennifer Pippin. So I'm gonna take some questions from the audience. I do wanna say one thing too, for anyone in this room who is even remotely thinking about this. We have actually 3 school board seats up. Yes, 3 school board seats up in 26. Well, I'm gonna be honest, probably 2 of them are winnable. So if you or anyone you're even talking to even gives you a shred or a hint of a consideration of being one of those candidates, let me know, okay? Also, just to give some glimmer of hope too, I started an organization called Educated We Stand almost a year ago, hasn't been very long. And my mantra is I've defeated moms for really once before, I'm going to defeat them again all across the United States of America. And in November, we only had about 3 months before the primary, but in November we supported 25 candidates. The majority of them were in the state of Florida in not so very safe spaces, and 80% of our candidates defeated Moms for Liberty. So the tide is turning. And right now we're taking on some candidates in Wisconsin, so that's going to be really interesting. Okay, so let's take some. Anyone have a question? And I'll climb the hill. Thank you for not making me climb, Pam.
I'll be your what is the word, runner, if you'd like. It's not even just a question. You're all amazing, and everybody in the room knows how much I love this person. But now I love Paul and Paul as well. But Stefana touched on this, and then Kim did as well. That complaining to the school board, which you should do. You should definitely be in the school board, holding them accountable rationally, calmly, in a way that they cannot refute publicly. But Stefana touched on it. The school board will be able to, when this law passes, just say, oh, we have to follow the law. Remember, that's how we ended up unmasking our kids in schools, because they said, oh, it's the law. So you have to also hold your state legislators accountable. And I don't know how many people really know that that is where it matters the most. Now, ours all suck. Like, they suck. I'm not going to pretend they don't suck. They suck. But when you go, again, rationally and calmly, and you have other people with you to see that you're rational, and then you can elevate that conversation, and then you do a public records request. How many people have contacted your office, Debbie Mayfield, that oppose SB 1692? And how many people have contacted your office supporting it? and then you make that public, so the voters know, oh, we don't agree with this, and the majority of people don't agree with us. Because what they get to say continuously is, the people want this. Randy Fine said that was why he put obstacles in the way of reopening our schools during COVID. He said, the will of the voters. And they don't, that's not true. And we need to make sure that they know we know that's not true. And that's that public record request. How many voters support the 1692 and how many have contacted your office in opposition to it? And make sure you are one of the people contacting the office in opposition to it. That's all I'm saying. Thanks.
And one of those sucky state representatives will not be Matt Susan.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else have a question?
Anybody? Oh, Jesus.
I'm coming.
Yes.
I don't have a question, I just have a statement. I went to the school board meeting when they voted, when the committee said all five said yes to the book, and then hi Gigi, and then the board said, nope, we don't want the book. And I said to the board members, you can't make this personal. And, oh God, what's her name? Katie Campbell said to me, it's personal. Yes, I can. So my thing is that I'm noticing at the school board meetings, there's very few people going. We need to change that. We need to go.
Thanks for meeting me at the bottom of the stairs.
I just have a comment or kind of a question as to when I see all these organized marches on the causeways and things like that, do you need to, get an approval through the county or whatever? But maybe that weekend before, also spread the word, maybe that would be a good time for people to make their signs to say, watch this, just march and hold the sign and talk about the movie coming up to remind them, somehow.
QR code.
I like that.